Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Miss Johnson and I will be your host, aka your Algebra 1 teacher this year. On this channel, you will find videos that are guided lessons to all the materials that have been posted in our Google Classroom. The beauty about having guided lesson videos is that if you ever have a question or if you need to hear something repeated, you're able to pause the video, you're able to rewind, replay, or access the video at any time that you need to. With these instructional videos, you basically have access to me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Due to this unlimited access to content and material, I know that you're going to put in the hard work necessary for you to gain mastery of the Algebra 1 course content. In addition to this feature, you can also leave comments and questions on our Google Classroom wall, or you can email me, or you have the option to attend office hours. I encourage you and I implore you to ask me all the questions that you need in order for you to gain clarity and obtain mastery of all the skills in Algebra 1. The expectation is that you watch these content videos before coming to class, so that way our class time can be used to clarify any questions that you may have and practice the content that you've watched in these videos. As mentioned before, these videos are guided lessons for material that have been posted in the Google Classroom. I strongly suggest that you print out these lessons and have colored pens beside you because I will teach with color-coordinated work. It is best if you're able to follow along and take notes with me as I'm explaining the processes and methods used to solve our problems in the Algebra 1 course this year. For today's lesson, here's an image of what you should have printed out and have along with you as you're watching this video. I'm excited for the many great things that we are going to accomplish this year. Without further ado, let's jump into our first Algebra 1 lesson. Let's quickly go over formatting for your lessons this year. At the top will be the title. The first number indicates the unit that we're in, and the second number indicates the lesson number of that unit, followed by the lesson title. So for instance, this is Unit 1, Lesson 1, adding and subtracting integers. Next is listed the objective. What are we trying to accomplish today by completing this lesson? For today's objective, it is I can add and subtract integers with a 90% proficiency rate without using a calculator. Now let's get further into today's lesson. Notes that are really important and that should stand out to you will be placed in shapes. For instance, today's really important note is placed in this box. When working with number sentences, be sure to capture the number and the sign that is immediately in front of it. Capturing the sign that is immediately in front of the number is going to be super important when you're working with any math problem. So off to the side, I'm going to write a couple of examples of what I mean by in this note. The numbers that I'm writing off to the side are just random numbers, both random positive numbers and random negative numbers. So I'm going to work from the bottom, working my way up. So I'm going to circle the number and the sign that's immediately in front of it. So this would be read as a positive 4. I'm going to circle the 8 and the sign that's immediately in front of it. And this would be considered a negative 8. Doing the same thing for the 12, I'm going to circle the 12 and the sign that's immediately in front of it. So this is a negative 12. I'm going to circle the 13. You'll notice that there is no sign immediately in front of it. If there is no sign immediately in front of a number, this is considered a positive number. So this is positive 13. I'm going to circle a 5 and the sign immediately in front of it. So this is a positive 5. I'm going to circle the 9 and the sign immediately in front of it. Again, if there's no sign, it's a positive 9. I'm going to circle the 7 and the sign immediately in front of it. So that's a negative 7. And then I'm going to circle the 6 and the sign immediately in front of it. And again, if there's no sign immediately in front of the number, it is considered a positive 6. So, any math problems that we do this year, you always want to capture the number and the sign that's sitting immediately in front of the number, not behind, the sign that's in front of the number. So, the sign that is on the left side of the number. The first thing that we're going to review is how to add and subtract numbers with a number line. This is a skill that was taught to you in elementary school. Using the note that I gave you up above, circling the number and the sign that's immediately in front, we're going to go ahead and complete this problem. So I'm going to circle the 4, and I'm going to place a positive sign above it because I know that this is a positive 4. I'm going to circle the 3 and the sign that's immediately in front of it. So I can consider this a positive 3. So yes, I did say that you should consider this a positive 3. And I know at this point some of you are asking, well, why? Because that's a plus sign. In math, a plus sign and a positive sign represent the same thing. So a positive 3 in this case means to add on 3. Now that we've identified what numbers we're working with, we'll go to the number line. Our number sentence begins with positive 4, so I'll place a dot below positive 4. Our number sentence then tells us to add on 3 in the positive direction. When I do that, I land on 7. Therefore, the solution to this number sentence is positive 7. We're going to use the same logic to answer the next question. So I'm going to circle the first number I see and the sign that's immediately in front of it. So I know that this is a negative 6. I want to go ahead and circle the next number and the sign that's immediately in front of it. But wait a minute, Miss Johnson. I see 2 signs. I see that there's a positive sign or a plus sign, and I also see that there's a negative sign captured inside this parentheses. So what do I do? Essentially here, what will occur is that I'm following my multiplication rules because I have 2 symbols immediately next to each other. If there's no number behind that plus sign, it can be assumed there's an imaginary 1. And if I do a positive 1 times a negative 3, that results in a negative 3. I'll then keep the first number the same of negative 6 and bring it down. Now I can go through and follow our same logic of circling the number and the sign that's immediately in front. So again, I circled the 6 along with the negative sign, so I know that this is a negative 6. I'll circle the 3 and the negative sign, so I know that this is a negative 3. I'll then go to my number line and place a dot at negative 6 because that's the first number in my number sentence. I'll then count on 3 spaces in the negative direction because our number sentence tells us it's a negative 3. I end up at negative 9 on our number line. Therefore, the solution to this number sentence is negative 9. Please bear in mind that we only used our multiplication rules to rewrite the original addition sentence. So essentially, the negative 6 plus negative 3 is equivalent to writing negative 6 minus 3. Therefore, no matter which way it's written, we'd still get the same solution of negative 9. It's convenient to use a number line and even integer tiles when working with small numbers to model addition and subtraction. However, when working with larger numbers, it becomes too time-consuming to use either of these methods. Therefore, we'll have to rely on our addition and subtraction rules for integers. Oftentimes, the rules for adding and subtracting integers are taught as two separate entities, or as two different things. It's important to know that the rules to add and subtract integers are exactly the same. Go ahead and box this part of your notes because it's super important to remember. The rules to adding and subtracting integers are exactly the same. I've written the rules for you down below. However, they'll be stuck in your head if you sing it as a song. And these rules go to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Just a fair warning, I'm not Mariah, I'm not Beyonce, I'm not even Rihanna, but I will sing the song for you guys. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number and you'll be exact. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number and you'll be exact. Same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number and you'll be exact. Alright, so thank you guys for bearing with my singing. I know it wasn't the best, but it's a way to help you to remember what your integer rules are for adding and subtracting. The lyrics to that song are down below, and I'm going to go ahead and circle them. And yes, I do know that I went pretty quickly with the song because the rhythm was pretty fast, but we're going to go through and analyze what the lyrics are. So what they tell me is that if I have the same signs, so if both numbers are positive or if both numbers are negative, then I'm going to add the numbers and I'm going to keep the signs. If the signs are different, meaning that one is a positive number and the other is a negative number, then I'm going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign on the larger number. And we're referring to the larger number when you take its absolute value. The second part down below, we're going to skip over that for a quick moment, but we're going to come back to it once we do some of our examples. Let's take a look at what the examples are with the top rule that we just boxed. So again, let me just remind you of the note that we have up top, that when working with number sentences, be sure to capture the number and the sign that's immediately in front of it. That's how we'll be able to differentiate if a number is a positive or a negative. So for our first example, we see a number sentence that begins with 8, and I'm going to circle the sign in front of it. So that means that's a negative 8. I'm going to put a negative sign above that circle. I'm going to circle the number 3 with the sign in front, which means that it's positive. I see here that I have different signs. I have a positive sign and a negative sign. So I'm going to refer to my rule for when numbers are different. I must subtract. 8 minus 3 is 5, and I want the sign of the larger absolute value. The larger absolute value would be that of the negative 8, so therefore I know that my final answer should be negative. So the final answer to the problem negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Let's move on to the next example. I'm going to continue doing the same method of circling the number and the sign that's immediately in front. I'm going to circle the 5 and the sign in front of it, meaning that this is a negative number. I'm going to put a negative sign above that circle. Then I'm going to circle the 3 and the sign in front, and I know that's negative, so I'm going to put a negative sign above that number as well. I can clearly see that both of these numbers are negative, so I want to follow the rules for the same signs. I'm told that I need to add the numbers together, so 5 plus 3 gives me 8, and then I want to keep the signs. Since both numbers are negative, I know that my solution should be a negative 8. Looking at the next example, I'm going to circle the number and the sign that's immediately in front. So I'm going to circle the 8, but you'll notice that there's no sign in front. So we can indicate that that's a positive number. I'm then going to circle the 12 and the sign that's immediately in front of it. When I do that, I can recognize that that 12 is going to be considered negative. And I'm going to put a negative sign above the circle. A positive sign and a negative sign are different. So I'm going to need to follow the rules for what happens when I have different signs. As a reminder, when you have different signs, you subtract the numbers and keep the sign with the larger absolute value. 12 minus 8 is 4, and the number with the larger absolute value would be that negative 12, so therefore I know my final answer should have a negative sign on it. So 8 minus 12 results in negative 4 as the solution. Going to the example right below this one, I'm going to capture the number and the sign that's immediately in front. Again, there's no symbol in front of 6, so I know that it's a positive number. And then I'm going to circle the 5 and the sign that's immediately in front, and I can also see that that is positive as well. Since they're both positive numbers, I know that they're the same signs. So I can go ahead and add my numbers and get 11 and keep the sign. So I know that my final answer will be a positive 11. Let's move on to the next example. Negative 7 plus negative 4. You'll notice that in this example, I have two signs immediately next to each other. So we're going to refer to what we did for the problem up above with the number line. You'll recall that I did touch on our multiplication rules. If I have two signs next to each other, that refers to my multiplication rules. What I'll need to do is multiply the positive sign by the negative sign. And again, as a reminder, if I multiply a positive by a negative, the result is negative. So this positive sign times negative 4 will result in negative 4. That's what I'm writing down below. I'm going to bring down that negative 7 that's in front, and this is our new number sentence. Negative 7 minus 4. So I'm just going to circle that positive and negative 4, so that way you can understand and remember where our number sentence written down below comes from. Now with our simplified number sentence, I'll go ahead and circle the number and the sign that's immediately in front. So that 7 becomes negative, so I'll put a negative symbol below the circle, and that 4 is also negative, and I'll put a negative sign below that circle. I have the same signs, so I know I need to add the numbers. 7 plus 4 gives me 11, and then I'm going to keep the sign. So since both numbers are negative, my final answer will be negative. So I'll have negative 11 as the solution. The same rules apply here. I have two signs immediately next to each other. I have that negative sign on the outside the parentheses and that negative 2 inside the parentheses. So I'm going to follow my multiplication rules. And I know that a negative times a negative will result in a positive number. So it drops out of that parentheses as positive 2. And I'm going to carry down the 10. I'm going to go through and circle the number and the sign that's immediately in front. So I'm going to circle the 10 and the sign that's in front, so I know that it's negative. I put the negative sign down below the circle. And I'm going to circle the 2 and the sign that's immediately in front, so I know that's positive, and we put a positive sign below that circle. Since the signs are different, I'll have to subtract and keep the sign of the number with the larger absolute value, which would be that of the negative 10. So I know that my final answer should have a negative sign on it. And negative 10 plus negative 2 equals negative 8. Great, so let me zoom out so that you can see what your full note should look like. And it's imperative that you guys take notes along with the video. And then let me show you what your short task is going to be. You are going to complete the student page. Student pages should ideally be completed in pencil, just in case you make a mistake, and you can go back and erase and correct your work. Thanks for beginning your Algebra 1 journey with me. Don't forget to complete your student page, and I look forward to seeing you guys in class tomorrow. Bye.